notice how some of the smartest people you know just fade out? Not because they moved away, not because they stopped caring. One day they're everywhere, replying fast, showing up, laughing along, and then slowly, almost without anyone noticing, they're just not there anymore. Fewer texts, smaller circle, and everyone starts guessing why. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they got arrogant. But what if neither is true? What if disappearing isn't a red flag at all? What if sometimes it's actually growth? Because underneath this quiet shift is something most people never notice. And once you understand it, you'll never look at silence the same way again. Here's the strange part. The more self-aware someone becomes, not just book smart, but aware of themselves and the people around them, the harder it gets to keep showing up for relationships that only run on habit. First, they don't pull away. They try. They answer every text, show up to every hangout, laugh at jokes they've heard 100 times. They tell themselves this is just what being an adult feels like. But something shifts. Not outside, inside. Conversations that used to feel exciting start feeling like reruns. Arguments become predictable before they even start. People chase approval from strangers while quietly ignoring the ones sitting right next to them. And once your brain starts catching these patterns, you genuinely can't unsee them. That's just how pattern recognition works. The more reflective someone is, the faster they notice repeated behaviors, repeated letdowns, the different masks people wear depending on who's watching. First, this feels kind of powerful. Then it gets exhausting because seeing clearly doesn't make life easier. It just makes pretending impossible. And that's where the disappearing actually starts. Not from people, from performance. They stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny. Stop agreeing just to avoid friction. Stop having conversations that leave them feeling more drained than before. From the outside, it looks like distance. From the inside, it just feels like honesty. Here's what almost nobody says out loud though. This isn't about feeling superior. Most people going through this spend years thinking they're the problem. Too sensitive, too quiet, too different. So they try harder. They reconnect. They give old friendships another shot. And end up feeling exactly the same. That's when it clicks. Not every connection is built to last forever. Some relationships only worked because of circumstance, or because of a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. When you change, sometimes those relationships stay exactly where they were. Imagine wearing shoes that fit perfectly when you were younger, and one day they suddenly hurt with every step. You don't hate the shoes, you've just outgrown them. Relationships work the same way. Growth creates distance before it creates clarity. And that distance almost always gets misread. People say you've changed. And honestly, maybe that was exactly supposed to happen. There's actually something in psychology about this. People naturally gravitate toward environments that match their current identity. So when someone starts changing on the inside, familiar places can suddenly feel unfamiliar. Not because anything around them changed, because they did. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Self-aware people tend to spend a huge amount of time thinking. Not spiraling, but genuinely reflecting. Connecting experiences. Questioning assumptions they used to take for granted. While most people move on quickly from an awkward moment, reflective minds keep circling back to it. Why did that conversation feel empty? Why does that person only text when they need something? Why do we spend so much energy impressing people who barely know us? These questions slowly reshape how someone shows up in the world, without them even realizing it. They stop caring about quantity and start caring about depth. And that's usually where friendships quietly start to fade. Not through some big fight, but through mismatched priorities. One person wants constant activity, the other wants a real conversation. Neither is wrong. They're just chasing different versions of fulfillment. Silence, interestingly, means something completely different depending on who you ask. For some people, silence is uncomfortable. It has to be filled immediately with music, notifications, noise, anything. But for reflective people, silence becomes the one place thoughts finally get room to breathe. There's actual research on this. Quiet moments let the brain process experiences more deeply. A lot of creative breakthroughs don't happen while people are busy. They happen while someone's walking alone, watching the rain, staring out a window doing absolutely nothing. The world calls this isolation. But there's a real difference between being alone and feeling alone. One's a physical fact, the other's an emotional one. You can be in a room with 200 people and feel completely invisible, or spend an entire evening alone with a book and feel more fulfilled than you have in weeks. It was never about how many people were around. It's about the quality of the connection. Here's the part that changes everything though. Self-aware people don't lose relationships overnight. They lose them one expectation at a time. They stop expecting every friendship to last forever. Stop expecting to be understood by everyone. Stop needing approval for every decision. And that quiet shift is where real freedom starts, because once you're not chasing constant validation anymore, your decisions start coming from your own values instead. But that freedom has a cost. Fewer masks means fewer people. And that's genuinely scary at first. Humans are wired to want belonging. It's one of our deepest needs. Nobody enjoys feeling misunderstood. And nobody enjoys watching old friendships quietly drift. But something interesting happens in that quiet stretch. Instead of collecting more relationships, people start protecting their energy instead. The question flips from who likes me to who brings out the version of me I actually want to become. That one shift changes almost everything, because suddenly being liked matters less than actually feeling at peace. Popularity gets less important than purpose. Attention gets less important than authenticity. Time plays into this too. When you're younger, time feels endless, so saying yes to everything feels harmless. Another hangout, another obligation you didn't really want in the first place. But experience eventually teaches something no book can. Time isn't unlimited, and every hour starts carrying weight. Every conversation quietly asks a question. Was that meaningful, or was I just filling silence? This was never about becoming distant. It's about becoming intentional. There's real psychology behind why this stage feels so draining before it feels good. Mental energy is limited, and every single interaction pulls from the exact same reserve. Most people assume burnout only comes from overworking. But a massive amount of exhaustion actually comes from constantly pretending. Pretending to agree, pretending to enjoy conversations that go nowhere, pretending to be available every single moment. Eventually the mind starts protecting itself. Not with some dramatic announcement, just with quiet boundaries. Fewer messages sent. Invitations politely declined. No longer explaining every personal choice out loud. To some people, that reads as cold. From the inside, it usually just feels like peace. And here's a detail that gets missed constantly.